Okay, here we go. This brief video is going to display our rationale for each activity that's listed. So here is our group's list of activities for EDLD 5364, Teaching with Technology, for our UDL lesson. So the first lesson, or the first activity that you see here, is that in pairs the students will discuss and list the properties in the anticipatory set describing the properties of a glass of Sprite. Now keep in mind this is a 5th grade science class with a lesson, the unit is on properties of matter. So really just grouping them in pairs and allowing them to just talk and explore together in buddies before we move to a big group. So this is using the recognition framework, and this helps with the diverse group of learners in our scenario, as we have 10 gifted students as well as a student who is hearing impaired, a student who's visually impaired, and struggling learners and special education students as well, all in the same room. So grouping them in pairs will just allow for them to be able to think together first before coming together as a class. So then our second second activity as a class will take turns moving objects to label a solid, liquid, and gas using our smartboard. So now they'll have an opportunity to, as a class, showcase what they've already talked about with their peer and using, so that would still be the recognition network, but now we're adding the affective network where they're able to utilize the smartboard, which is a very motivating technology piece for the students, for all the students in general. The third activity is guided practice, and this they'll basically be discussing how things are classified, again, through smaller groups and moving objects around in the room. So this is more of a strategic network. Some of the objects could be classified in 2 or 3 of the categories for properties of matter. So the teacher would just be walking around the room and ensuring that guiding them practicing the various properties of matter. Then we'll move into independent practice. Now this is where the technology administrator, which is us, would make sure that the teacher understands the library policy or procedure for taking out the school cameras or other technology devices, or allowing students to bring their own cameras from home, to facilitate the actual devices that the students will use to take their pictures. But independently, each student will take pictures of various objects and classify them. So this would be the recognition network as well as the strategic network. So the rationale for this is now each student is getting to own his own pictures, and also too, about this time we're going to introduce the rubric for this unit, and on the rubric, our gifted students can have a few more components in their rubric, whereas the students with special needs or struggling learners with learning disabilities, 504, ESL, they can have different rubrics. For example, the ESL can include some more language goals too. So that's the rationale behind that. So the students would actually have their rubric for how many pictures are required of them, and the structure of how to label them, where maybe a struggling learner just has to put liquid, whereas a gifted student needs to write a paragraph on how and why it's classified as a liquid. So then also for independent homework, the technology administrator would have set up the teacher with a class blog and showed her the basics on how to navigate through that. So for homework, the students will blog their findings of the different pictures that they're taking or things that they're planning on taking. And this uses the recognition, strategic, and effective networks. in this activity. So the rationale behind this is for more collaboration, for feedback from other peers, like, wow, that's a great idea. I want to take a picture of that too. Or I don't understand why you would put that, classify it as that. So the students can collaborate with each other via the blog. The last one is that students now get to present their photos using PowerPoint or a photo sharing tool, and possibly some students, especially if they're using their own camera or a picture device, they might have some kind of photo sharing presentation program that they're already familiar with. So again, the rubrics can be tweaked individually as needed, as per an IEP or something like that. So the actual groups themselves the activities themselves are structured in such a way to give the teacher, including the special education teacher, the teacher that helps with the visual impairments, the special ed teacher that helps with the hearing impairments. There's a lot of flexibility that can be built in on the assessment piece, ensuring that each student is meeting the goals that are needed so that all students are challenged and the lesson is differentiated.